In the previous tutorials, you learned how to construct the frame for your car, as well as the wheels and the axles. In this tutorial, I'm going to quickly show you how to develop the wheel well guards that go over the top of where the wheels will be housed. To begin, we want to grab the circle tool and select a region nearby and click and type in 20. And then hit spacebar to bring back the previous command. Try to find this center point. Might have to move your mouse a little bit. Click and type in 25. And we want to raise the interior circle up slightly. So if I were to click on this, click on that center arrow, type in 5. Now it has a raised point in the middle. And now we want to select everything and extrude it. So I'm going to grab my extrude command. If you can't find yours, you can always type in extrude and raise this by 20. And I want to get rid of the interior shape, so I'll type in subtract. Click on the outside, I'm keeping that, and remove the inside. Okay, so I think I'm going to zoom in for this part so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. I might even tilt it a little bit just so you can see the center. So now what I want to do is grab the Polyline, just a straight line tool, find the center point, pull out here, pull down here. Now, keep in mind that it's grab the center point at the 5, and you guys discovered this when you're doing your bridges. When you create a line over top of a three-dimensional object, it snaps to that level. So this is 5 millimeters off the ground at this point. If you don't want that to happen, you start your line here, you find the midsection and cross through it, okay? It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to make a slight adjustment later anyways. So it doesn't matter if my line is perfectly in position here. What's important is that this connects. And you'll soon know why. Okay, so that's a solid line to the center there. Now if I were to rotate this, see how I'm floating above? We don't want that, so first I'll extrude it. It's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing when I extrude it. I'm going to grab this and extrude it by, it doesn't really matter, just any value. You just want to be higher than that circle that I've drawn there. Okay, now you'll see the position. So we want to lower that by 5 because it was grabbing that value that was raised, and now we're in the correct position. So if you want to avoid that, as I mentioned earlier, just cut across from this side as opposed to starting in the middle. Type in subtract. We want to keep this object, hit enter, and we want to subtract this one, hit enter. So now we've cut it in half. The next step is to flip it. So I'm going to grab this and rotate it by 90 degrees. And if I were to move around, you would see that I now have what looks like a wheel well guard. But before we pull it over, there's actually a step there's 2 steps we have to do. The first one is to raise it up by 20 millimeters because in the previous video, you recall that this frame was raised up by about that amount. So you need to do that first. And then also we need to create a platform that it snaps onto. If I were to pull it over right now, it wouldn't really know where it's supposed to be positioned with respect to these wheels. So what we want to do is build that in top view. And I want to trace it. It's a good idea if you are in another layer to do this. I'll just leave it in the wheels layer I created. I'm not being overly fussy for the purpose of this demonstration. Before I start tracing the frame, one thing we should do is add guidelines so that we know how far to bring in the edge of our surface area. So if the wheel is 40 millimeters and the wheel well guard is 50, we need to bring this out by 5 on each side. So click here, bring it over by 5, spacebar, spacebar again to bring up the last command, bring this over by 5, and do that on each side. And down here. So now that the guides are in place, I will grab the Polyline tool and it should snap into the correct position. And if you get the hang of this, of course, just like in any other tutorial video, you can fast forward. Yeah, that line's a bit crooked. That's the risk. If ortho mode works well for you, stick with it. It could be a Mac version issue. I have noticed that the two different platforms create different results, is you don't want crooked lines. That one's quite crooked, but I don't want to undo and redo this because I'm doing a demonstration for you. When you're doing your own, you would want to redo that. Okay, and now we can trim out those pieces we don't need, or just select them, delete. Oops. Okay, so zoom out and then we want to go into southeast isometric mode. It could be, well, it depends how thick this piece is in your construction. We do 5. Okay, now we're ready to bring over the wheel well guard. Okay, so we're going to select this, copy it, grab it on the corner, and snap it into position. Okay. Now for the other side, we have to rotate it in order for it to work. So take our wheel well and rotate it 180, select it, copy it, snap into position, and snap. Okay, so let's rotate this and see how it looks. You might want to, when you're designing your own, make it a little bit wider if you like, so that it sits on the side. Or make it longer. Maybe we pull it down so it fills that gap and so forth. But you get the hang of it.